Hi, and welcome to another channeling video. So the offer for this week, or from last week, but it continues this week, is if you buy a natal report from me, you also get a free holistic report. So the natal report is $49, and if you order that, you also get the holistic report worth $99. And if you order that, do remember to send me your birth details because I'm going to need them to make your reports. And thank you for the questions last time. I'm going to use those today. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed these questions. I think they're really, really good. And if you have any more questions, anything that comes to mind from watching this video, write them into the comment section because there is a great chance I will use them in the next video, if it's sort of aligned with the purpose of this channeling, which in the purpose is for it to be healing and uplifting and beneficial and informative for as many people as possible. Let's get right into it. So here's a question that many people have asked. It's taken some time. Well, I have channeled this before, but it was in a video that was deleted. So we're going to do it again. So it's about the COVID vaccine. So the question is, what do we need to know? What are the pros and cons? And yeah, let's see. What do we need to know about the COVID vaccine? There are some benefits to it to some people. For many people, perhaps most people, it's unnecessary. But for people who have a fragile health, especially older people, specifically older people, it has benefits. Who else does it have benefits for? People who have specific health issues that can be worsened by catching the virus. For those people, the virus will be beneficial. So, are there any negative side effects of this? Like with any pharmaceuticals or medicines, there are risks, there are side effects or effects on the health. In a healthy individual, neither the virus nor the vaccine will have much of an impact. But in a fragile person, they can both have a strong impact. However, for those people that might specifically benefit from the vaccination, they do have to check for any particular vulnerability to the specific side effects. Okay, so I'm wondering, I think there are like many options for the vaccines. Are there different options? Yes, but few. So I'm seeing like a couple, 3, maybe 4 options. I guess it depends what country you're in. Okay, so are there some that are better than others? Some have gone through more strict testing. So there is one that is better because it specifically targets what needs to be targeted. There is one that is weak in efficiency, and there is one or two that is sort of medium in efficiency. Okay, so are there any long-term risks that we need to be aware of? Yes, there are some long-term effects that have not come to the surface yet. For those who are particularly vulnerable to the virus, it may still be worth it, but it will be harder to connect any future health difficulties to the vaccine. In a healthy individual, if they take the vaccine, but later on have fragile health, then they may be more susceptible to the long-term side effects. So what is the guidance on this? How should people evaluate if they should take it or not? If they know they have fragile health and have struggled with it for a long time, then this might be right for them. For most adults that are in reasonable health, and by that I'm seeing like for most adults we have maybe some health issues here and there. So that's not enough fragility, if you put it that way. So for most adults who are in decent health and who are able to work and live their life comfortably with only maybe minor health issues, for them it's unnecessary. It's only if you have severe health difficulties and have very fragile health that you need to be considering the vaccine. But these people will know who they are from the consultations with their doctors. And this is specifically about older people, old people specifically, with some exceptions. So there might be some people that are younger or middle-aged that have very difficult health issues. But generally, it's for older people. That was good to know. I hope that helps. Okay, moving on. This is also a great question from the comments. Is there family karma that repeats itself through generations? And if so, how do we break the negative cycles? So first of all, is there such a thing as family karma? Yes, there can be underlying emotional issues that can present themselves as outer situations, outer problems, or issues within the family over generations. Okay, so if that's the case, then how do we break the negative cycle? The first step is to identify the repeating pattern. Okay, and then most people do not identify the repeating pattern. They observe that what is happening to them has also happened to their parents or to one of their parents. They may not know that it goes back further than that. It might be good to ask about your grandparents and if they had similar issues, albeit in different forms. And then you might identify a generational problem, karmic problem. Is it really karmic though? Yes, it has to do with the family line needing to work on a specific difficulty. And some things go so deep that it takes generations to heal it. So it might be healed partially in one generation and then further in the next generation. And that may go on for 4 or 5 generations until the healing is complete. So how can one break that cycle in their own lifetime? There is quite radical change that needs to happen for the cycle to be broken. but it starts with a determination that this is not my fate. I am not bound to live with this karma. I can break it. When you know that you can, you will approach this issue in a determined and confident and self-empowered way. And you can decide that this stops with me and it will no longer continue. You need to be fully aware of all the harm that this pattern has caused and be determined that it will no longer continue. You must have no loyalty to the problem. Like, for example, this is what my mother suffered through. Out of love for my mother, I must suffer the same fate. You must have no such loyalty to the problem. Out of love for your mother and your ancestors, you must break that cycle. So how do we do that? How do we break that cycle? It starts with deciding, and then you act different, and you have no attachment to the problem, and you must see the possibilities of this ending. You cannot view this as something immovable and unchangeable. You cannot see this as your destiny. You must see it as something that has happened repeatedly but must stop happening, and direct your attention to the desired outcome, to how you would rather have it be. Most of family karma is related to family relationships, trauma within the relationships, or suffering in the relationships within the family. Thank you. Okay. That was a really good question. Okay. Let's see, we did this one. How do we get over a breakup? I guess this is a good one that, even if it's not relevant for you right now, I guess it's good to know. How do we get over a breakup? You must decide to turn a new leaf and be excited and open to new possibilities. Not necessarily to new relationships if you're not ready, but new possibilities and new energy coming into your life. Breakups are not random. When somebody has completed their sole purpose for you, when you have reached the end of their sole purpose for you, then the relationship will dissolve, and you will feel this. There will be no more growth. So do not consider breakups a mistake, but rather the fruition of a cycle. Be excited and open to new energy. It means you have developed and you are ready to receive something new or many new things in your life. So what do we do with the emotions then? What do we do with the heartache in that situation? You must mourn that love ending. Although it's not an ending of the love, it is a shifting of the form of the love. The love will take on a different quality, and you must mourn it while staying in acceptance for what is, and trust the process of life. Trust that you are guided, and trust that you are supported, and trust that whatever you need will come to you in the form that you need it. There was something in this that you needed. If you're able to, it would be ideal to view this partner or this ex-partner as a positive influence in your life. View them with love, but not with attachment. So how can we speed up that grieving process then? By looking for things that make you happy. Well, that's not easy in that situation, is it? So what do? You must look for things that make you happy and have no attachment to sadness. You can mourn one thing while still being happy for something else. You are not dependent on anybody. You are not dependent on this person. I think there is a lot more there, but I have to be honest, I'm feeling a bit of resistance because it's a sad topic. So I think we might come back to this one in another channeling, because I'm not sure if that was sufficiently helpful. But we did get some good answers, but I'm sure there's more there. Okay. Oh, here's a very important one, but very maybe heavy one. Okay. How do we heal from childhood sexual abuse? So this is a very taboo topic, but it is affecting so many people, male and female. Only men have a harder time talking about it. But so important. How do we heal childhood sexual abuse? Childhood sexual abuse changes who you are in a profound way. What most people don't know is that the purpose of that early trauma was very foundational to who you would become later. I don't know if I expressed that properly. So it happens in order to make you the person that you need to be afterwards. So what does it do to it? How do we become afterwards? You become a much deeper and more profound person. Whether or not you express this outwards, if you heal at least partially, or are willing to see it for what it is, despite the pain, then you are comfortable expressing your depth outwardly. If you struggle to come to terms with it, the depth that it created in you will not be expressed to the same extent. You might appear to be more shallow than you really are. So how do we heal it? The key is in this depth that it created in you, to be willing to look within and be very authentic in your emotions. Be very honest with yourself. Be willing to look at the good and the bad. Be willing to face your shame without taking on any guilt. Be willing to not blame yourself while still accepting the shame that came with the abuse. So how do we heal that? What are the steps to healing it? For some people, the purpose or the agreement before birth is to not heal it completely in their lifetime, because it has a major role in their life path and life purpose. For other people, they are allowed to heal it. Those are the people that would be interested in learning about healing it. People who are not meant to heal it will not try. They will feel that it's an immovable obstacle, but they will not suffer as much. They will bury it deeper, and as a result, not be as affected by it in their life in terms of suffering or pain. Those people that are meant to heal it will suffer greatly as a result of the abuse. So much so that it will motivate them to heal. And because they're able to feel it, they are able to heal it. And they will heal it by facing their emotions, looking at their past situation, confronting the conflicting thoughts and feelings. In some cases, there is love for the abuser because of a close relationship tie or family tie. And they will confront those conflicting feelings of love, but also hurt and disappointment and guilt and shame. They must, in order to heal, they must no longer feel guilty. That is a very important step, to recognize that it was not their fault. And they need to face the shame that is there. And while not feeling guilty, accept that the shame is not theirs to carry. They have nothing to be ashamed of. And so they will come to terms with the aspects of life that are shameful but human. And they will have love, acceptance, and tolerance for those aspects of life within themselves and towards others. The key is to no longer feel guilty, but also to understand that their abusers didn't know any better. If they do these things to face the situation and confront these very difficult feelings, they will heal. And the key is to transform that shame to forgiveness of self and understand that there was really nothing to forgive in themselves. They were never guilty, and the shame was never theirs. But they, in order to get there, they need to allow themselves to look at and feel, look at the shame that is there, and look at the feelings of guilt that are there, that are causing them suffering. Anything else on that we need to know? Look at yourself with compassion. You were a child. You were innocent. And you were thrown into very adult situations. You were innocent. There is nothing for you to carry. It's not your shame and it's not your guilt. But it's also, in a sense, not even the abuser's shame or guilt. They didn't know better, and they were acting out a pattern that they've been a part of. Does that mean they too were abused? Does that mean abusers were also abused? Yes, every time somebody abuses somebody else, it is evidence of this person having been abused themselves. Oh my God, this is deep. I need to ask further. Okay. So every time someone abuses someone else, that means that is evidence that they have been abused themselves. Yes. This is an emphatic yes I'm getting for this. Okay. But I'm assuming it doesn't mean that just because you've been abused, you're going to be abusing others. No, no. Not everyone who is abused will abuse other people. Not everyone is of that character. Although some people do that and continue a cycle, it is not always the case. It is usually not the case that just because you've been abused, you will abuse others. That's usually not the case. But for some people, they do. You must remember that abusers abuse multiple people, and not all of those victims continue as abusers. That would mean the problem would grow, but rather only some, a minority, do continue to abuse others, and they abuse multiple people. Okay. So, is it the case that the form of abuse you've suffered, if you are the type of character that would continue to abuse, does that mean you continue the same kind of abuse that you were subjected to? Yes, it will be almost identical. The kind of abuse that you've suffered will be the same kind of abuse that you subject other people to, even in terms of the gender of your victims. Well, that don't make sense. So if a man was subjected to abuse and he abuses women, what does that mean? What does that say about his abuser? That would mean that his abuser challenged or humiliated his sense of masculinity, and he's trying to reclaim it by subjecting women to the abuse. Okay, does that say anything about the gender of his abuser? Not necessarily. It could be a female or male that subjected him to the abuse. Okay, but so the emotional impact was such that he has to abuse women. Okay. So does that mean it can have different emotional impact on people depending on who abused them and how and the circumstances of the abuse? Yes, depending on the effect it had on the person's psyche, they will continue that cycle of the same form of humiliation that they suffered to create the same effect on the victims as they were subjected to. Okay, but to clarify, the majority of people that have suffered childhood sexual abuse do not continue to abuse others, is what I'm getting. I want to make that really, really clear. But those that do abuse, Spirit is saying, have always, every time, been subjected to abuse, similar abuse themselves, or the same kind of abuse themselves. Okay, wow. Ooh, this was a big one, man. Okay, I still have a lot more questions, but I think I'm going to have to save some for next one. But we're going to do a couple more. Let's see, which ones should we do? Okay, I'm going to do a lighter one now because I feel like that was heavy. Okay. Do names impact the life, destiny, or personality of the person carrying the name? So I've seen this happen where it's like the meaning of your name is like a very big part of your actual character, your personality. So my name means dependable, loyal, and secure. And it's, I may have mentioned this before, but it's sort of related to amen, the word amen, which is like, it is so, like this is a fact, this is unmovable facts, something that you can really depend on. So after saying a prayer, you say amen to solidify, like this is so. And so my name is related to that. So, and I'm a Taurus. I'm quite stable and solid and stubborn at times, and like very stuck to my ways, for good or bad. But I am quite dependable in that sense. So, but I've seen that happen with so many of my friends, and so I do want to see what impact do names have on a person. What is the impact of names on a person? The name giving to a child is a solidification of the life path and destiny and personality of the child. It is like making something so. The parents, usually unknowingly, decide a very major theme for the child. The parents are always intuitively guided in the selection of name for their child. It's usually unknowingly, but they will feel right about a name for a particular child. Or they will feel that some names just feel off and don't feel natural to call this child. Even if the parents don't know the meaning of the name, they will feel it. And so they will take part in the manifestation of the destiny of this child. So our names kind of decided from the other side, or before birth, or from spirit. For the most part, yes, up to 80% is decided. Not necessarily the exact name, but the meaning and the energy and vibration of the name is decided at a higher level, usually by the child itself before birth. So whether that meaning manifests in one language or another, or in one name or another, that meaning will be carried. Okay, so are there names that don't correspond to the life path or personality of the child? Yes, there are some names that do not have a specific meaning. They can be names that are either made up or don't or cannot be traced to a particular meaning. When this is the case, the child tends to have a more open and flexible life path, which is not so set in stone. And there is usually an intention in the parents that this child have a more flexible life purpose and not be restricted by expectations or ancestry, but have more of an open playing field. They will sense the energy of the child and feel intuitively that this is appropriate for them. Interesting. What about surnames? Do they also carry meanings and impact the family? Yes, they do impact the family dynamic. They are lesser in impact. They carry a smaller impact, but they do have an effect. Keep in mind with the surnames that even though they may appear to make no sense sometimes, they may be referring to a profession or something in nature, but that profession or that thing in nature will be a representation of an energy carried in the family. For example, if your name is Miller, then there is the energy of milling or a person doing the milling that will in some way correspond to the family dynamics. When the surname refers to something that is done, such as a profession, then the impact is related to how things are done and the family's general underlying dynamic is around how things are supposed to be done, which is indicated by the type of profession. If it refers to something in nature, such as a stream or lake or a mountain or a rock, then that tells you something of the elements at play in the family dynamic. And it says more about the character of the family dynamic, whether it's water element or earth element or fire or air in some cases. So you can always trace some symbolism to the family dynamic through the surname. Okay, so what happens if we change our names? What happens when you change, like through marriage or just by choice, whatever, if you change your name, or if you have like when artists change their names, like what happens then? Then you choose a new energy to step into. What about when you change your name through marriage? What happens then? You enter that new family dynamic that will be at work in your new family. Is there something we should be cautious about in terms of choosing names or changing names? Should we pay attention to this and like the only time you need to be cautious is if you have identified a very dysfunctional, problematic, and difficult family dynamic that is attached to a family name. In those cases, changing the name will change the dynamic and change your destiny to some extent. It will change your future. But generally, if it's not for removing a very deeply ingrained, difficult energy, then it's not so impactful to change your name or surname. It will change the dynamic, but its influence is not so strong. When it comes to first names, the influence is stronger and the effect will be only on you. It will not change the family dynamic, but it will change you and your destiny. So is it important when we change names to take that into account, or do we need to, like if we've been unlucky, do we need to change our names? If you've had a lot of bad luck, it is usually not because of just the name. The name is usually only a small part of it, but it's a good idea to change your name when you are wanting to step into something new that requires very specific qualities in you. And when you want to focus your attention and energy on some specific qualities, and then it's good to change into a name that really embodies these qualities that you want to include in your personality and destiny. Okay, I hope that was helpful. This has been intense, I think. So that was all for today. And if you have any more questions for next time, write them in the comments. I still have questions left for the next video, so I'm going to continue with these for the next session. But do give me more if you got any good ideas now. So share them with me. And the offer that continues this week is that if you buy a NATO report for me for $49, you get a free holistic report worth $99. And that is valid until, I think, next video. And if you order that, send me your birth details because I need them to make your reports. Thank you so much. I hope this was enlightening and I hope this was helpful. It was pretty deep there for a while. It was quite intense. But thank you for listening and I'll see you next time. Bye.